How you doing, guys? This is Chase Landry Baggs, another episode of No Change Orders. I wanted to talk today about commercial construction estimating. The reason I say that is because, like, whenever you're getting a quote as an owner, developer, even as a contractor, a lot of times in the process, commercial estimating is you have to look through the plans. You have to be able to see through in the gray areas of what's not being shown. In fact, a lot of architects and engineers, they place on the plans, they place statements that say basically, we are not liable for any of the drawings that do not show detail or do not explicitly express all of the detail that is part of the codes and regulations. So it's basically a CYA that says the contractor must follow all state, local, federal guidelines and regulations to complete this project. So even if they miss something in the plans, it's on the general contractor to be able to pick it up and understand it and build it to the specifications it's supposed to be. So for a contractor, for a design builder, you're supposed to take everything and understand it and review it further and find out all the gray areas that exist in the drawings. So it's our job to see some of those areas that exist and to exploit them so that they don't become a change order later on in the process. The whole reason we created this show is we don't want to have change orders. So we have to look at those gray areas and exploit them to the architects and the engineers and the owner to tell them that, hey, look, here's a gray area, here's an area that isn't well explained or it's assumed, and whenever two different people assume two different things, that's where a change order could be created. If it could be misunderstood as something totally different because the details are not there, that also creates a change order. It's about setting the expectations from each side to be on the same page, because that's where arguments happen. That's where at the end of the project, someone thought they were going to get an extra bathroom or an extra water fountain or another door, window, or whatever, because they either had something misdrawn or not drawn and they might have thought it was spoken about, but it didn't get recorded, didn't get drawn, it didn't get put in an email or anything. So at the end of the day, estimating is where a lot of the gray area gets to be peeled back and you get to explain that before you start the project. So as an estimator, I personally estimate every single project. I get some help from a project manager, office manager. I personally look over every single one of them and I calculate the numbers. I do the takeoffs. So I get to see and notice all of the gray areas many times before we start, but it doesn't count a lot of the self-inflicted change orders that sometimes owners, they want to add another canopy or some canvases, or they want to add another bar top, or they want to add another plumbing fixture for an additional hand washing sink, or whatever it may be. That's self-inflicted, and that's okay. People always maybe change their mind and want to add something, which is good. It might make the company more money, but we're just trying to avoid the change orders that we can obviously pick up and see in the gray area up front. So part of our job is when we look at the drawings in the beginning, to try to reveal all those areas to say if you're missing something blatantly, or if the intent is what is on these drawings, you discuss it with the owner. You say, hey, you're gonna have 4 bathrooms, you're gonna have a water fountain, you're gonna have 3 offices, your lobby is gonna be approximately 400 square feet. You're gonna have an idea of what's going on in those particular details. Many times in the estimating process, you have what's called qualifications or exclusions to a bid. Whenever you're providing estimating numbers to a customer, you're gonna show these are the items that we were not sure about, we excluded them or we included them, and this is how much money we put for it, so that you can justify that although nothing was drawn on it, you anticipated that you might have put $2,000 or $3,000 for this particular fence for maybe the dumpster pad or something that's not drawn on the drawings, but you had anticipated something for it, and you give them an allowance so that they have something in that little bucket to be able to fill, because you know it's going to be present, you know you're going to have something, but then you discuss that with the customer because it might get a little bigger, might get a little smaller, but you can at least put a number on it and you can feel comfortable that it's not just a missing item on your project. Another thing in the qualifications and exclusions is that you could state certain unit costs for certain things, you know, such as if you're bringing in more dirt fill on a project, or you need to excavate and fill back, you're gonna have unit costs for that, so that you have at least an understanding, hey, if I gotta get an extra 200 yards imported on this site, we're gonna have a roundabout cost estimate of it off the bat. Not everything you're gonna have a unit price on, but you can at least have some idea of where it's going and price-wise where you're gonna either go over budget or under budget, you're gonna know some of those numbers. I mean, we always recommend at least to have 3 to 5% of a contingency allowance over and above the construction cost, because things will happen. Many times the change orders come on the civil, the site work area, because that's a variable that, you know, no one can tell under the earth how the soil conditions are. Even if you do a lot of the soil investigations and the feasibility studies, you're looking at the reports to tell you how the soil composition is 10, 20, 30, 50 feet below the surface. You may come upon some areas that you're gonna find that it's really mushy, you don't get good compaction on that area, so you can't pass a 95% density test or above. So you have to excavate that soil and you have to add more fill in. So that may be a change order. Whenever they do soil investigations, they may have 4 to 5 to 6 borings on the site for a building that's 10,000 square feet or so. So you're not getting every square inch. You're gonna see most of it, what the composition is. Most of the time, it's all in that consistency, but sometimes you come upon some areas that are bad and has to be excavated. So that's a reasonable area to have a change order. But other than that, we're trying to avoid the areas of which we do have change orders. So whenever you're estimating, whenever you're in your pre-construction planning, budgeting phase, to give the bank a number, to understand a lot of things, and even further, whenever you get to a contract price, you wanna be able to see through the gray areas. You wanna be able to exploit them, talk with the owner, talk with the developer, talk with the city, and understand all the missing pieces. And so that takes a little work. It takes experience to understand what's not there as well as what is there and to understand it. So that's what we do. I personally do that and I understand it, and I want to give some knowledge of the way I do it. Maybe everyone doesn't do that way. We're just trying to explain the way we do it, but we just want to show some of those elements. We're gonna walk inside to better show some of the things that go along with estimating and how it works and how we estimate it. What you're looking at through these walls is it's actually 3 units. We're in a unit, and then there's a unit in the middle, and then on the end there's a whole separate unit. But just for the basics of seeing the metal stud wall, which is a demising wall, a firewall between the two. I mean, you can see through there, you have some of the mechanical, the HVAC, you see electrical wire and low voltage is what they're running right now. You can see them. Some of the red wire you can see on the scissor lift. Just wanted to show some of what it looks like as it's open wall right now, and you can see a lot of the elements that go into it before it's all drywall and painted. All right guys, this is just an example of being able to see through the drawings or being able to just pick up some of the things that might not be left off of the drawings. And this is just a very simple illustration, and it's much more in detail on a plan set. But this is an example of how it could go. Usually you have some kind of legend or keyword on a set of plans that'll say, you know, hey, this equals this. Like, maybe this hatch box equals a 5x5 canopy over a door, and the plans actually say all the doors must have a canopy above it. In this particular example, you see the shaded blue area represents a canopy, but this one didn't have it. So a lot of times this happens in all scopes of work. It could be air conditioning, electrical, plumbing. It could be a sink that's missing. It could be hot and cold water at one of the faucets or something. But in this case, just to show a simple illustration, they don't show a canopy over this door. And whenever you're estimating, if you're just going really quickly through it and you just see, oh, hey, you count it really easy because it's easy to see with the color or the shading, and you say, hey, I have 3 canopies. But no, you got to realize, like, there's another door, and they did write on the drawings to say, hey, you must have a canopy over all the doors. So it's just something that when you write down your scopes of work and you're listing out everything you need, that's one part where you can kind of catch a few things and say, hey, how many doors do I have? And you should have the same amount of canopies. So just logical deduction is you should see those things match up and or catch it if it's not present. So although this is a small example, this is the kind of thing that happens between contractor and an owner, because, you know, sometimes the architect may give a set of drawings to an owner and they get it and it all looks good and it looks beautiful, and, you know, the architect, he covered his butt by having that up there. It doesn't always translate to the contractor, and there may be some confusion, but the moral of the story is to be a good estimator and to see through some of those things. Although you can't catch all of them, the idea is to go through your plans and make a good scope of work list so you have something to check against whenever you're estimating. And that's just part of seeing through the gray areas. We're actually going to show some of the drawings from a set of plans to kind of illustrate some of these things too. That's just the general rule of how to see through it, of the things that are there and are not, to be able to help you identify everything that should be there before you send an RFI, a request for information, to the owners or the architects. You kind of want to go through it and make sure you've identified what is obvious to you.
Hey guys, we wanted to describe some of the deeper dive details into estimating. Now we're in the office on our program. We use Procore Estimating, which is Procore is our cloud-based project management software. And just in general, what we do is we identify the scopes of work that are going to be evident in the particular project, and we pull them out and we list them on our list here, so that we're not estimating all of the there's a possible 50 different divisions from the Construction Specification Institute, which is just a broad range, widely accepted set of divisions of construction so that everyone's speaking the same language whenever we're discussing the different divisions of construction. So an architect, engineer, owner, contractor, we're all speaking the same language whenever we're speaking about a particular division of construction. For example, in concrete, you're speaking of concrete foundation, structural concrete, general conditions, things like insurance, overhead, office, supervision, things like that. Woods and plastics. We're talking about wood framing, trim, baseboards, things like that. Openings, windows, doors, finishes, things like flooring, drywall, paint, all your finishes that you're going to have on a project. I mean, there's of course your MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, communications, exterior improvements. Anywhere from 20 to 25 of the 50 is typically what we use. We pick particular ones that pertain to the general scope of work of a project, but typically it's 20 to 25 divisions. And then, there's subcategories in each division, but typically it's about 20 to 25. Like I said, the CSI divisions is just a universal code language, if you will, so that all the naming, the nomenclature of it is all the same across the board, across the nation, for sure in the US and Canada, and I think other countries accept it too, just so that whenever you're speaking about a particular division, everyone's on the same page. In estimating, we understand, we look through the project, see all the details, and see what pertains to this project, and we list out, as I've shown here, we list out all of our divisions, scopes of work, so that we have something to go off of and have a checkbox to check off once we've satisfied looking at all those items. As you can see, this is a floor plan, just as an example to show some of the things, we do. Again, this is an example. Say if we're looking at flooring, just a quick illustration. I could measure this area right here. It shows it's 724 square feet. And so, quickly I could have that measurement, size it up. I can now add a dollar amount to it and it allocates it, and it's on a spreadsheet already automatically for me. Say next we'd want to go look at, acoustical tile ceiling. Say if we want to do just this room here, you can see it gives you all your perimeter measurements too on each wall. So that's pretty cool. This goes along for every item possible on the project. So, you can measure linear footage of the walls. We have assemblies also in here, which means that we can measure one wall and simultaneously it'll tell us how many bottom plates and top plates and wall studs you need all in one measurement. So it's taking three different material types, I guess you could say, and putting it into one measurement where it derives the counting of three things at one time, or it could be 4 or 5 or 20 of them at a time, but you're just deriving it from one measurement. But it takes a little work to put a lot of that information in the program so that when you do measure it, you're defining what you want it to spit out for you. So that was just a quick overview of estimating and how we estimate. Again, this is Procore Estimating. There's many other estimating programs out there. This happens to be our project management software, which is cloud-based. And so it's kind of our ecosystem where everything lives. And it's just a really good way to keep everything together and also diagnose what exact scopes of work that are on a project. We put them on here, we extract them, put them in our side panel, and then we estimate from that. So we're not missing anything. We get to visually see it. We actually hide. I just clicked off this blue right here. We can hide layers and we can show them back and forth, because it might get kind of messy after you estimate, a ceiling on top of a flooring or something, or maybe you're estimating linear footage of framing compared to the drywall on that particular wall. So You can hide things, you can show everything at once if you want, but just in general, this is the way we go about it. So you kind of eliminate some of the gray area and you see everything visually. And if something comes up and it's not there, you can see it, you can identify it, you can send it in for an RFI, a request for information, to the architects, engineers, the owner, to get things better specified. And so this is kind of where it starts, just by identifying on the left here all of your scopes of work in your divisions. And then from there, you start doing your work, your takeoffs, your quantities, your pieces, the items, the counts of everything. You're doing a calculation of what's there. And then, you later on, when you move it over to your estimate sheet, this is all blank because it's a tester, but you can input, cost of your labor, cost of your material, and it would actually give you some real numbers for your estimate. So you can look over your sheet at the end and you can have everything pretty well documented. So we recommend actually like performing this type of work, estimating, going through it, making notes, and then taking this and sitting with the owner, with the architects, engineers, after you've derived all of your questions and some of the concerns you may have, or some of the ideas you may have about changing something up slightly, just because from an estimating standpoint, when you look at it, it may not be designed to actually work in the field. So you need to meet with them and say, hey guys, is there a way to change this? Is this your intention? What was your exact intention, so we can get it right from the start? And so once you digest all of this stuff and you start estimating it, and you have to put a number on it, a value, that's going to make you realize what exactly is drawn either correctly or incorrectly, and understand what the intent is, so you can properly put a price on it. Because if there's confusion or gray area on it, you're not going to feel comfortable putting a price on it, and or you might want to put too much money on it, which is not healthy for anyone. You want to get the right answers. So you need to be able to look at it, identify it, and then ask questions off of that. Sometimes, projects are fast paced and it's not as easy to do that. Sometimes something completely could be missing and you would never know it until you get to the project and someone says, hey, we wanted this, and it's not drawn. And so that's the point of having meetings, the owners, the contractor, architects coming together to be able to have a sit down and say, hey guys, are these the intentions of what you want as a whole? So we can make sure we at least price it out correctly, we get what you want, and everybody's on the same page, everybody's speaking the same language, and it goes over a lot better. I mean, nobody wants a surprise in the end, and it's a lot easier to work it out in the front half whenever you have options to value engineer or delete, add, whatever it takes to the project to make the owners happy. But you just want to have an option to meet and understand some of the differences. And like I said before, an RFI, request for information, is a tool that we use between architects, engineers, contractors, to be able to get information from one another to explain our intents. But ultimately, the best thing is to have a face-to-face meeting with your drawings and with your findings of the things that are clear and not clear. So hope this helped out a little bit and just describe the process a little better from visually seeing it. But we'll have another episode on this to show a few more things and some more takeoffs and more particulars in the estimating process. But this is a general overview to show the characteristics that we commonly go over just in general of how to derive a price. Thanks for watching, and we hope you come back next time.